Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Product Coffee. So, we're going to kick it off today with our first cup. Cheers. And we're going to talk about a recent Cassava piece that was arguing that product managers may be better positioned for AI than most roles because we already live in ambiguity and context switching and iterative judgment. So, the spicy fun part is where that leads. If AI keeps collapsing the distance between deciding and doing, product work may keep drifting toward a more product engineering shape. So let's get into what it still looks like product management work and what's getting absorbed and what experienced builders need to learn. I really like this article, but I honestly, I think it lets product managers off a little too easy. AI is not some big gift to product managers as a category. I think it's a gift to good product managers. For everybody else, it's kind of an exposure event. But we're going to talk about that a little bit. Let's start off by meeting our panel this morning. First up, this guy gets paid to figure out which AI ideas are real and which ones were clearly invented by a guy with a keynote deck. Welcome back, Misha Solpovar, who is now the chief AI officer at Foley. Welcome back, Misha. And then this guy builds software, infrastructure teams, and even seismographs for fun because apparently normal hobbies just never took. Nandu Shah, president of the Atlanta CTO Club. And last but not least, he's worked in payments, fintech, and mobile, which is basically a masterclass in how one tiny product decision can ruin everyone's afternoon. Seth Pelletier, Senior Director of Product Management at Dayforce. Welcome, Seth. All right. So let's get right into it. And I want to lead off. Kelly's dropping the link to this article in the chat so that everybody can kind of take a look at it. But as I kind of summarized at the beginning, the writer's making this argument that product management may evolve towards this notion of product engineering, moving the strategy side much closer to execution. And we do see a lot of product managers certainly moving faster towards prototyping with AI and even writing some reference applications and prototypes, some fully functional prototypes to communicate with their teams. And some companies are even requiring their product managers to ship PRs. And we've argued about whether that's a good idea or not. But today we're going to talk about the reality of the evolution and what's really happening out there in the marketplace. And so Misha just took on a new role as chief AI officer at Foley, and he posted in our product coffee Slack team, he posted a really interesting job lead for his company where he's looking for some AI engineers, but it was something different than what you normally see. So Misha, tell us about that and how that relates to what you read here in this article.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's been no secret we've been talking about this topic for a long time, Jason. And over the last couple of years, have come out as leaning more to the side of the need to get more technical as product folks. So I just want to throw out that background. But the idea here is, as we think about what an AI native enterprise looks like, it's exactly what you just said. It's bringing the decisions and the control or the ability to spin up the surfaces closer to the business problems. So what we are building is, as an organization, the tiered layers that enable that to happen. And that means having builders that are either domain first or build first, that sit inside of the different business units, that also enable the knowledge architecture, the centralization of quality, the governance, and that really also shifts what classical, I should say traditional engineering starts to look like, and starts to emphasize quality for evaluating generated code as a discipline. And I saw this transition over at Cherry. We went from about no generated code to about 95% of the code being generated, and the builders shifting from engineering to effectively everybody in the company. And it's a shift that I'm expecting to see proliferate through enterprises that are able to seize the moment and lead.
Cool. And so the AI engineers that you're hiring for have a different kind of requirements from the traditional computer science background than we might have talked about before. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I've identified really three areas that provide, at least for where we are in my needs, that provide what I think is the right formula for success here. As the tools get better and better, the ability to architect and do the heavier engineering lift, that part is less important. The three profiles there are folks that come with domain knowledge first, but that have been building. And I don't care if they've been building for that they have engineering backgrounds. The important thing is, have they built in the last year or two, right? MIT, when they bring folks in, they have a concept that you actually learn by doing. And that's one of the primary filters by which they roll information through to their program. So it's really important that there's exposure, because through that exposure, just like when AlphaGo came out, forget the guy's name, but the guy that was playing AlphaGo, so it was like playing with an alien. It's hard to explain how the collaboration between AI and human shifts until you've experienced that collaboration and not just applied it to asking questions and getting recipes and having right product requirements, but actually delivering value. So I'm looking for that profile. Have you delivered value? And do you come from domain? Separately, maybe you come from consulting. You know how to solve a problem, recognize a pattern, understand a system, and understand how to solve a problem with the system. The third one is that architect view, and it's, can you architect the platform that enables these things to happen? And those three profiles fit together at different parts of the stack. So you can build any surface you want to and have the protection of the frameworks that get built underneath the hood to keep from security breaches and all the other things that happen in a regulated industry. Or you come at it from a problems first space, you're a problem athlete, which is
Problem
again the
athlete, I like
domain
that.
of yeah, it's the domain of product management, honestly, but also consulting. And then the third is the architectural piece where you can think in systems and understand how to, build that into the Claude markdowns and the persistent memory layers and all the other things that you're going to need to instrument autonomous systems.
Gotcha. Cool. Thanks for sharing that. Nundu, I threw this article at you yesterday afternoon late, and you said I'm in. So tell me about your take on it, on this whole concept.
So, I mean, I know you regularly invite me for something spicy. I didn't want to disappoint, but I also do think that there's something worth talking about here. My first reaction to this was published on April 1st. So is it serious? And I was going to try and read this as an April Fool's joke, but I didn't want to waste anyone's. My hottest take on this is the article spends half its time talking about what makes product management different and special compared to other disciplines. And I don't think it does have a really good point underneath it all. And I don't think it quite gets there. So as we were doing our sound check and getting set up for this, we talked about the programming language Perl, right? And I'm still a big fan of that language. But here's something that most people maybe don't get about Perl and Python and a lot of other languages is there absolutely is some way to categorize some languages as having more powerful, even though Alan Turing showed that everything that's computable is equivalent. Some languages are in some sense, more powerful than others. Perl, Python, Lisp, and others are in some sense more powerful than, say, C or COBOL or Fortran. And where that comes from is expressivity. And going back to the article, what I think it doesn't quite ever get to is a PM's real job is translating ideas to end users. And the tools we have now, the AI coding system, and we also, I don't want to talk about what is and isn't engineering, because I also think that it's misguided to talk about a shift from product management to product engineering. Engineering is a real discipline which requires a real set of skills and training, and no tool is going to magically turn someone without those skills and training into someone who has them. But what the tools we have now do is they shorten some cycles on parts of that translation process, and allows you to iterate faster. So my best historical example is Thomas Edison, who discovered 100 ways not to make a light bulb, right? Before he settled on tungsten as the material for the filament. We now, all of us, regardless of our roles, can find many ways not to solve the problem we want and relatively cheaply, right? So if, let's say, something took you a day to run a particular experiment on, is this the thing I want to do? If you wanted to try 100 times, it would take you 100 days. But now you could do those 100 things in one day. And what that gives us all is more expressive power. And that is what I think the article circles, but never quite lands on.
Okay. Yeah, I'm kind of there with you, especially on the reality that even when Misha was talking about the roles that he's looking and the qualifications he's looking for, he's still talking about people who have that systems thinking and have that understanding of how to architect a system and how to shape it so that the AI has the right kind of guidance. It's not just throwing a prompt at Claude Code and saying, "Go build this thing for me." It's about understanding exactly how to manage the team. And I think one of the things that Misha told me a while back that unlocked me on Claude Code was he said, you need to don't think of it as coding, think of it as managing an engineering team. And that kind of really unlocked my thinking. I still did a bunch of really crappy stuff with it, but then I learned very quickly to your point there and kind of reawakened some of the old engineering skills that I had used way back in the day that I'd allowed to collect dust under the bed for quite a while. But to your point, it is a real discipline that requires a real different skill set. Still, the article's point that the non-deterministic nature of AI and the flexibility and the need to quickly iterate and operate in a space of ambiguity is a space that good product managers especially, are particularly good at. Let's switch over to Seth here, who is leading a team of product folks at Dayforce, and tell me how this registered for you. You mentioned you had a couple of things that you said during the warm up and a sound check that I
Yeah.
need to get back to.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to take a bit different approach here. So I think everything that Nandu said is kind of where I'm aligned to. First, I'm going to caveat all of this is out of everybody here, probably like between like, especially like Misha and Nandu myself. And I will be the first to tell you, and I have a lot of engineers that are friends of mine that will also tell you, like, I have a marketing degree. I've held some form or fashion of a product management role, and like pick your different company and what they define as product management since I got out of college. I am not like, I'm technical enough to where I can get by. But the advent of all this, like whether it's Cloud Code or anything like that, like I don't want to play in the terminal. Like when I'm at a technology company, and like it sounds super cliche, and I'll quote like a Marty Kagan book, like I am 100% like the missionaries over mercenaries. Like I hire smart engineers because I'm not an engineer. So I think everything that where Nandu is going, and like this is where I feel like the most strongly about this article is I'm indifferent about the word engineer. I think it by calling it, especially like myself, like, and I don't know if I told this before on this particular group, but I used to work with a gentleman who was an engineer by trade, like early days of T-Mobile, switched to product management, and his user stories were like one step away from here, copy and paste this code. Not me. So I think by calling it a product engineer, it kind of does a disservice to people that spent numbers of years getting a degree in engineering. Like if I went to a buddy of mine who's an electrical engineer and like started calling myself a product engineer, he'd probably laugh at me. So take out the word engineer. I think what it does, the context shifting, I think it's a form of one, like if you're a product manager that also has ADHD like myself, you are golden because I love switching different things, like 20 different things at a time. Like I'm ready to go. So I think the mode switching, the ambiguity in which a product manager has to live, like that is one of the first questions I ask, even if I'm interviewing proper software engineers. Like it's like, how do you feel like about living in ambiguity? Because like I'll get you 80 to 90% there, but like there is going to be some form or fashion of a requirement that we don't know the answer to, and we're going to figure it out. If you want 100% certainty, like and the article actually like does do a good job of explaining this, is like software development like is binary, right? It's either right or wrong. It's like I have a 15-year-old son and I tell him the same thing about math. Like you're either right or wrong or math. Like there's no interpretation. It's either yes, no. Software development's the same. But with AI, like there is a level of ambiguity and like stuff that you have to coach it on. So I think where the biggest takeaway for me and like where I think it does it, maybe it's want to call it product engineering, maybe you don't. It is the cycle times and like the delegation. Like the article speaks about the delegation of like, typically if you want to run a prototype or do something like that, you have to go get engineering involved, design, all this other stuff. If it is going from, I heard this customer problem to, I want to get a quick proof of concept to see if it's viable or like if it solves the problem, and I can increase that cycle time without having to bother an engineer or bother a designer, let's go. Because to me, like that's cutting that time in half. I can get information without shifting their focus. Because I also know the number of times if I interrupt an engineer or a designer, like when they're in the middle of like deep thought, like they don't like that either. Right. So if I can shift their focus to where they're focused on the higher value things and the things that we know we need to get done, and I can use the tools that are at my disposal to accelerate the cycle time of me getting feedback from a customer and like having a rough proof of concept that I can use at least to visualize something. And that's where like, I want to make that like very clear line of delineation, like a bunch of notes here that I took on this is then there's the part of this. And I think there's been a lot of articles recently about this too, from like a product standpoint. And before when during the warm up session, they're just talking in April, like I don't know if anybody saw, there was a LinkedIn post about like how Uber now has like a leaderboard of like AI usage. But it's just like AI usage. It's just like, how much are you using it? Right. So I can use it for a lot. And like, I don't know, I previously in a past life, I worked for one John Trainer, and he posted something the other day about how instead of trying to be more short, he's going to write everything as like, if it was like Tolkien and like, it's going to be Lord of the Rings AI, and it's just going to like, just eviscerate tokens. But now it's like if it's just usage, like anybody can churn out a bunch, but it's then, like how much of that code is actually good, or like how many things are breaking? Like, is it actually solving the problem? And all those other things that go into it. I think that's where the product management piece is going to become key, right? It's going to be like, as much as people like, if I can, as a product manager who's not technical, can spin out an app or a website in like 20 minutes, it's going to be commoditized. And now it's going to be like, as much as people were making choices on like user experience and like taste before, it's going to be even more so. So there's going to be that lens, right? So I think that's where it kind of goes to this balance of like, sure, I can accelerate if I want to code a prototype, sure. Like I will tell you, like I have a very overzealous sales team, and they were like, oh, we should have a prototype of the roadmap for like 3 years out. Like I know exactly what we need to do and where we need to get to, but I'm not going to waste the developer's time or designer's time to build a prototype of something that's 3 years away. But the fact that Claude did it for me in 45 minutes, like, cool. It gets me enough there where I can visualize something and like show it to somebody, but I don't have to waste anybody's time. So I think that's the balance to me is it increases cycle time, right? And so then like before it was like when I first started out and like everybody else, like, and I tried, don't get me wrong, like I was ready to go with like Code Academy for about as long as I used Duolingo, but everybody's like, oh, product managers should learn how to code. Okay. But now it's like, I need engineers to learn how to prioritize. And it mentions that in the article. I think that's a huge piece, because if everything now is easy to do, and it really is, like the CEO of Dayforce is an engineer by trade. And so to him, everything is, oh, it's just the weekends of work. Like, let's go. Like, why is it 6 months? It's a weekend. And so now if everything really is a weekend, and I'm not going to have any kind of barrier of like size or timing, cool. But now it's going to become, can engineers, like if anybody's a product engineer, can we really get to a point where it's like prioritizing the right things?
Yeah.
And to me, that's the biggest thing is like, you're still going to need the prioritization, right? Like you're still going to know if I can build anything and everything and it takes me a week to do instead of 6 months, are you doing it just because it's fast and I can throw it over the fence? Or are you actually doing something that's either going to drive value or solve that problem? So it's going to get even more scrutinous of what business problem are you trying to solve? How are you going to measure success? And like, what is the outcome? I'll stop there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of
It feels like, Seth, what you're saying to me feels a little bit like open bar, right? Like you get to the club and you
Yep.
get an open bar, and
A
all of a
literal open
sudden,
bar. Gotcha. I was trying to figure
literally
open. What's the language I don't know yet?
all of a sudden, you're overindulging a little bit. You've got a bunch of code running around, but at the same time, it's also like, are we still operating under a scarcity mindset? And that's the bit that I want to challenge, because I think that what I'm seeing is, especially with things like co-work, and especially Anthropic is particularly interesting because they took a different approach to agentic than everybody else. And I just don't see a future where we're limited by a scarcity mindset in an environment where application layers, especially the visualization layers, completely transient. I could spin up whatever I need. I've got my kids that they want to play a game. I told them they can't go play Fortnite, so they just spun it up in Rosebud to get around the rule, right? I don't know if the question still becomes what value gets prioritized. Because everybody can have a different experience or a different surface. So
Yeah, I think there's also the point, like, I'll tell you, like, so Dayforce in general, right? Like, huge application that does everything from like onboarding and recruiting to like succession planning and like offboarding and everything in the middle, like where the sweet spot is like workforce management and scheduling, where like 65% of the users on the platform are frontline hourly workers, right? So then if you're building big enterprise software like this and you don't have a problem with scarcity, you can just do whatever you want. You still have a user base that isn't as savvy as every person on this call, right? So if I'm a frontline manager at a light industrial, like we'll call it a plastics manufacturer, I still have the needs that I have of being that manager. And I need to be able to get into the application I'm using, do the things that I need to do, and do it quickly without like a bunch of bloat, right? So you still have to optimize for that user's experience and like what your actual goal is. If your goal is just to build software, that's cool. But if you have, like, we think of like a plastics manufacturer, I'm a frontline, a shift manager. I have work gloves on. I need to pull out my phone or go to a desktop computer, need to see who's scheduled or do something else and like clock somebody in or do all these other things. And there's 9,000 new features that I have to like click through to get to the same thing I've been used to doing. You're not doing anything.
True. So that's taste, data, and judgment are three different pillars. And so would you rather have one of your product managers applying judgment to the features that are going out to those users, or instrumenting a data signal so that the experience can be empirically delivered? Like what's the better approach? Is it collecting signal, or is it leaning on judgment?
Yeah, I think that's a huge question, right? I don't know. Like I have like just off the cuff, like I don't have an answer because I think it's still like, again, like I'll speak very transparent. Like my current product, right? Like it is a enterprise software product that like you're talking, like not any, but most enterprise software products, like it is 6 releases a year that are communicated across 7,000 customers in just North America to however many workers. Like it's these massive things where you're not instrumenting it at a moment's notice. You're instrumenting it over a span of 6 releases a year and communicating it to where people can have change management across. However, we have customers that have hundreds of thousands of employees to where if you think of like large retailers, well, you're doing all the change management. If you have change management, you're introducing new features on the drop of a hat, and you have to do that across, say, take like a 1,000-store grocer, and you have grocery store managers and workers and cashiers that are 16-year-old high school students, and you have to do that change management across the retail scene. Like no one's going to use it. Like they're going to revolt because you have to worry about, like, you're cutting into bottom line. If you introduce a bunch of change and it's like changing every 5 seconds and you don't have the ability to do the change management from like that kind of cascading approach, you're going to have store managers. And again, it 100% inherently depends on the market you're serving, right? If you're serving, like, if you're building SaaS software and you're just serving other like technology companies and they're used to that change, go for it.
So
I want to
yeah, go ahead. No, no.
just quickly respond to a couple of words that Misha used there. One was surface, and if everybody has a different surface, right? And the other was Fortnite, right? Fortnite is a really good example of how everybody needs the exact same surface. Imagine a multiplayer game where everybody's UI was different. What would be the point? The second part, and this is the thing that we, as anyone talking about AI, we keep circling something that I don't think we actually talk about enough, and that is that coding is not the same as software engineering. And we, as even as engineers, as technologists, as a society, have conflated the two for a really long time. And AI tools have gotten really good at coding, but I challenge anybody here to go take Claude Code or their tool of choice and go make me a Fortnite that can serve millions of concurrent users reliably, where like it's not, yeah, there are fun glitches in the game, but millions of people can play this game at the same time, right? And by doing that, you are showing taste. You've got something that people like. You're showing actual engineering because you've got scale, real scale, and performance and reliability, and all of these things beyond just features. Those are all the things that I don't think we have a clear path to through AI at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point and a great landing place. I want to thank Misha and Nandu and Seth. I know you are all three exceedingly busy and took time out to come discuss this, but this has been one of the better first cup discussions we've had in a while. A lot of food for thought, and I think the notion of product engineering is still, even outside of this article, and the way we're even thinking of product engineering versus software engineering, is still pretty fuzzy. There's a lot of ambiguity into where the lines are drawn. So a really cool topic to watch. Some other great references and points that you brought into the discussion. Had a lot of fun with this one, and I had hoped to pull in a couple of other folks from the audience, but we covered our first half hour. So I want to get into the main session today. Our guest today is April Dawn, and April started her career as a research scientist. She and I have had a little bit of a conversation. She started off doing marine biology research, and she has brought that skill set, that very disciplined scientific skill set, into a career in product management. Most recently, she was senior director of product management at, oh, doggone it, I have dropped the we've got a couple of members here. What was the company? April?
Clarivate.
Thank you. Sorry. I'm so sorry. So most recently, she was senior director of product management at Clarivate. And today she's going to dig into some topics about connecting value to product discovery. And with product discovery, we can surface all kinds of useful signals, but teams often get stuck on the hard part. And that is, does any of it actually connect to the outcome the business cares about? I mean, discovery is cool. We discover customer needs. That's really important. But how do we connect it to the things that really pay the bills? So this week, April is going to bring us a research scientist's rigor and a product leader's practicality to that gap, helping us connect what we're learning to the results we're actually trying to influence. So April, I want to welcome you and turn the controls over to you, and let's get started.
Great. Hello. Thank you very much for that nice introduction. It's great to be here. I'm really getting to meet many of you in the community, and I really appreciate being a part of it. It's been a really great experience, and I'm appreciative for the invite. So let me go ahead, and I'm going to share my screen really quick. Give me just 1 second, because I have to go into screen mode and all of that. If I can find my button. There we go. All right, perfect. We're good. Everyone can see. We've spoken recently about product discovery as theater in Product Coffee. And today what I'd like to do is go a little bit deeper into how we can transform it from theater to actually something of value that you can take to your executive suite. So today I'd like to focus on an experimentally data-driven way to think about, for PMs to think about how to make connections from discovery outcomes to business outcomes. And this is not an easy task, but I will say that the AI technology has made it a lot easier to do for the PM. We just heard some colleagues here talking about writing code and being able to code as a PM. This also applies to how we do discovery. But today I just want to focus on making those connections and changing the mindset of how we think about product discovery so that we can walk into an executive board or boardroom and have numbers that they understand and resonate with them, meaning dollar signs. How do we connect discovery and what we know about the product to actual business outcomes? So as many of you may have felt this kind of moment where you have this feature here, it's called dependency mapping, and you've looked at your product dashboard. You know that those teams who use this feature within their first 2 weeks of joining or joining the product or adopting the product retain significantly higher rates. So their retention goes up. And you've designed a solution to drive earlier adoption, and you estimate it's going to take, to whatever X amount or number of sprints to complete. And your VP then asks, what can you tell me if we release this that it's going to actually drive any business before I greenlight this investment? How much am I going to get in returns? So you have the discovery insight. They need a business prediction. The question is whether you can show this connection or not. So if you wanted to put in chat, any of you who have had these kinds of similar questions or actually a desire to be able to connect your discovery to business outcomes, I'd love to see just, a show of hands or even just a quick chat saying, yes, I totally have heard this. And it could be other scenarios, any scenarios where you have to connect discovery to business outcomes. And as we talked a few weeks ago about discovery as theater, we don't often as PMs do or know how to even make these connections. And sometimes discovery is a checkbox. Usage went up, therefore it must have landed. All right, we kind of make those broad generalizations.